I am an entrepreneur by heart. I am an expert in specializing in hydration and DNA nutrition, and a certified theta healer and access consciousness process practitioner. And so I'm really all about personal growth, personal development, and very much into right now also working on creating something from all the that's got me forward into the first 40 years of my life, what's propelled me to get to where I am today, because I've gone through many transformations and overcome so much past adversity, childhood adversity, and in my health, my my water has been, when I started on the this water, I literally was able to have my energy sustained. Ever since I was a baby, I had a weak immune system. And so, and whenever anyone would, and I also learned later in life that I had a gluten, dairy intolerance, but that didn't follow me because I didn't grow up with my family. And so it didn't follow me that I had this intolerance. So people were giving me milk and dairy and things like that. And so by the time I was a teenager and I really got into eating cheese, I loved cheese, and then I had the time of my life in my last senior year. I moved out of state to to Utah. I was out there for a while and lived on a small town, and we would one of our favorite things as a family that we'd go help feed some cows, and then we'd come back and get to bring home some real fresh cream, the milk and cream, and we'd be making ice cream, things like that. And so, and that started, me on the road of having to take medications and stuff for headaches and things like that. I didn't know at all those things were associated, but my health has always been something I've had to fight for, my wellness, and to have balance. And so I kept refusing to accept, allowing myself to be medicated and this and that. And then when I came across this water, met Sam Tron, I really I like the fact that he's got a background in science and, in the former pharmaceutical, thing like that, and could help me to understand some other things. But when I started, first thing I started on this water, I no longer felt like I had to make sure I was going to have plenty of protein or something to eat every few hours or something like that, because my energy would sustain me. And I'm like, wow, I can actually relax and not be so pressured and feel like I have to, be at the mercy of, my body just kind of giving out on me.
Wow. So how did you, the question that I normally ask people right out of the chute is, and the reason for this is because my biggest curiosity when it comes to people is how, when, and why did they decide to get involved with Kangen water? And then the fourth thing, which is really important, is were they a skeptic like I was? Because I was a big time skeptic of this water. I thought this was the most ridiculous thing in the world when my buddy Tim was posting about it all the time. And I just thought it was stupid. I never said anything though. I'd just laugh and give him a like and move on. And then that one fateful day came where Brittany Dykes shared her story, and I hit that see more button for the first time. And I heard her story. And at the end of that incredible story of hers, I had to call Tim and say, hey buddy, maybe I should take a look at this. Next time you're up here, bring me some info or something. And that was the end of that. That rocked my world, changed my world forever. And now I'm trying to share stories with other people. And that's why I ask people to come in and give their story to the Kong family. And I call it the Kong family, because I say, how do you think that gorilla got so big? He's out there in the jungle drinking Kong's water from the base of the waterfall. And plus, It's called Kangen water, not Kangen water. A lot of people call it Kangen water.
Kangen water. It's
Not.
interesting. That's why you call it Kong, right? Because it's pronounced Kangen water.
Yeah. And that beautiful lady, you know, my wife, she insists that Kong is a girl, not a boy. And I said, well, why do you say that? And she says, well, listen to the machine. That's a girl's voice. That's not a boy's voice. And I go, well, fair enough. There you go.
That's
Kong is
good
a
insight.
she.
So when it came up for me, you know, you were asking about the, you know, what it was like for me when it first came across my awareness, you know, about the water. Actually, I had learned about it from somebody else before, from going to a house. I was at some event that somebody had facilitated, and somebody had had this water machine there. So I got to try the water. And then, you know, there was you know, this friend that her and her partner, I was connected with them and was kind of figuring out how I could, you know, maybe get something or get that. And I didn't know at that point about the Kangen store, about, you know, you can go and you get free water samples, things like that. So that kind of passed me by, you know, I let it go. And then something was happening and surfacing, and I was seeking for something more, another solution. Because I had already started working with another practitioner who does alternative energy medicine type of things, and getting acupuncture when I could. And lo and behold, I went to an event that was where I met Sam. He was hosting a table, you know, to testing, and he muscle tested me with it. And that was like, you know, a no-brainer. You know, I think I had gone to a meeting with somebody else before, but I never really gave much attention to it, as much attention. I was locked into fixing all this and that, whatnot, whatever was going on. So, but then when this time around came, Sam we kept in touch. He came over, you know, I knew immediately, I sensed it. I was right there, like, you know, I got to get this. I got to get this, you know, I got to get this water, you know, it's like, because what I had tried to do, I think there was maybe a skeptic in me, you know, that because I was trying to use a different solution before I came to the Kangen water. I basically made the mistake in first I got something to do osmosis for the water. So that was something I did. It was less expensive. And then I advanced to getting a distiller, distill my water. And I was not putting in the trace minerals that it needed. So what eventually ended up happening is my body was showing signs of like depletion big time of the appropriate minerals. And I had a wake-up call. My practitioner gave me kind of a wake-up call on that. And so I got rid of it, and then I started to go down to the Kangen store to get some water. And, you know, and connections that Sam had at the store shared something with me personal about somebody's testimonial, about something that would be significant for me to hear. And it was really meaningful. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I was on it, right on it. I took water every week. I don't drive, so I use a public transportation. So I had this pool cart that I went and I put gallons of water in that and bring it home, you know. So I was having Kangen water for a week, you know, each week. After about 3 weeks of that, I was like, okay, there's got to be another way I could do this. And so I ended up manifesting getting a loan, you know, because I couldn't qualify for the payment plan thing, you know, given my circumstances. And so, but I was still determined. I don't care what it takes. Is I got to get it, you know, what have you. Like, so I ended up manifesting getting a loan for that. And I knew that I was going to be getting a settlement too for something at some point. That was another thing for me to manifest later. But a year later, I got my settlement, was a miracle in itself, and I was able to pay it off. So I paid for it in a year.
Yes, I love it. I love that. I love to hear that. That is so awesome. And so you got involved because of basically because of Sam Tran. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you about Sam Tran. I love that guy. I've spent a night at his house. I've met him several times. He has been such an incredible influence on me and this business.
There was a
Before Sam
tremendous.
Tran, I got really frustrated with people that wouldn't look, that wouldn't pay attention, that wouldn't, that kind of thing. And he's like, he taught me to like, I'm just here to save your life. You could, if you don't want to save your own life, I can't do anything for you. I'll see you at your funeral, that kind of thing. He's like, there's 7 billion people on this planet. I don't need to worry about anybody out there, that's not interested. And his thought process really helped me a lot. And so I think that's a real blessing for you that you're part of Sam's team. And, you're part of, obviously, if you're up there in Sam's area, that means you're up in the Seattle area. And so you got Dan Edlund and all the kids up there that are doing such a fantastic job. You've got a heck of a team to plug into. So that's going to be a real blessing for you as time goes by. And so
it was
when it comes to this water, we can't say things except for our own stories, and we need to be really careful to make sure that we let people know, that people really understand that this water does not cure or heal anything. Nothing.
Right.
What it does is it provides that most important thing that your body needs to do its own fixing, to become its own mechanic. It's per se the most important tool in the toolbox so that your machine can become its own mechanic. And so with that in mind, what kind of, because you already told me that you kind of started out, on the short end of the stick from, which to me, that's really something that hits close to my heart, because my mom, she was born sick. She had every kind of fever, every kind of problem. She had a 6th grade education because she could never make it through a year of school. And it's amazing all the things that she had sliced and diced out of her body by the butchers. And it's truly amazing that I was the last of 12 kids, and I'm the healthiest in my family. And it's it's part of the reason because I took a proactive approach to my health a long time ago. When I read the book World Without Cancer, that shifted my mindset, shifted my paradigm, and so it came right into this. But your story is really compelling and heartwarming to me. And what I would hope that you would share with people, and once again, people, as you hear this, to anybody that's hearing this, understand that what Callie's going to be talking about right here, it's her body that did the healing. It's her body that did the curing, not this water. Very important to understand that. This water doesn't heal or cure anything. So with that said, once you started drinking the water and giving your body the tools that it needed to do its job, what happened? What kind of things were you dealing with, and how did it work for you? How much water were you drinking? What other kind of things were you putting into your life along with it? What kind of things did you get rid of?
Well, interesting, before this happened, I had my second near-death experience, and that was something that Sam and I both have a language for understanding what that's like. And it led me, I basically brought myself back alive, willed myself back, and I realized that my body needed something. It's like this water is what it was what it was needing. I was needing this. So your question, okay, so what started to happen for me, my body basically was becoming more slightly alkaline. I'm in my environment around me is toxic in terms of, because of all the electrical appliances or the Wi-Fi, things like that. And I'm in a studio apartment where neighbors are like, 6 feet away from me on the other side of the wall. So I have very small space. So I really have to do a lot. And I noticed that I was learning while I was drinking this water that my body was requiring a lot of water, but yet also had to be careful because I've drowned my brain before, and that was one of my first near-death experiences, and that was in a whole other story somewhere else. But while drinking this water, I was able to be more in touch with my body, and when my body was more, I noticed that when I started having this water more often, that I was getting stronger. I was feeling like that the things I started to do for my body was giving it what it required in order for it to be self-sustaining. Of course, nothing that I take or drink or consume does it for me. It is the cleanliness, the purity of the hydration, the purity of the balance between my body being able to recover. I'm a little bit I'm doing a combination of things that are allowing me to have that balance. This water is a big thing because of the fact that, no matter what we consume, water is the foundation, and then anything that follows that's pure, it's going to magnify it. So this water is, when I started on it, I noticed that I was able to, I was like, have you ever had acupuncture before?
I've had acupuncture done one time.
Okay. So you know what it's like, what happens when the body meridians are balanced and flowing the way nature was designed for it to, right? And that's what happens when drinking the water. So it allows the stressors to go down because the body is not struggling or fighting, or depleting another part of our body or something else in order for that. Like, I did some investing in my brain health this last summer and found, it was like over, a number of months ago, and found that I needed help with my brain. And I think that drinking this water, was part of that, of helping it to be able to give it, to give it the proper balance that it needed to be able to help take care of itself. So I'm doing better. I'm getting stronger. My processes are improving. I used to have some deteriorations that was showing up, and that's changing for the better. My healing overall, like I have been recovering from a major multiple surgeries from my right leg, and multiple fractures that I had from being hit by a car and ruptured artery. So basically there's a lot of circulation stuff that was going on for me. And so, I feel like that because the slightly alkalinity of the body, really helped me tremendously. And then just this last summer, I got my own spa. So that on top of that, I was really felt encouraged to get that, and it's just, I miss it when I've traveled twice now where I traveled for a weekend. I did not have my machine with me. I bought the smart water since it was the closest slightly alkaline bottled water, but it was also a realization the first time that I was not getting the proper, there was something that was missing. I wasn't getting, you know, there was somebody at the event that offered to give me some electrolytes. He actually is drinking some alkaline water himself. And so I knew next time when I traveled, I took some, it wasn't easy for me to be able to travel taking my machine with me. So I knew to get me a little trace mineral drops to put in the water. It helped. But so does that answer your question? Or is there something more you wanted to ask on that?
Well, the one thing that one of my goals with this thing is to help, because there's an old saying that there's nothing new under the sun. And
Right.
so the truth of the matter is whatever you've gone through, there's probably someone out there as well that's gone through the same situation. And you know, it's so fascinating to me in that I've been involved with Condon Water now for 3 years, and you are now the fourth person that I've met that has had a near-death experience, that they died and came back. And so far, the first three have had the same thing to say about the experience. And if you don't mind, I would really appreciate it if you would elaborate a little bit more on what happened. Like Sam has talked about how he smashed his head skateboarding and
Oh, okay.
put himself into a coma, and you know, and all that stuff, and it changed his whole world. And you know, he always talks about how sometimes it's unfortunate, but it was his case too, that because he was a huge skeptic of this water. He knew about it when it first got here into the United States, and he wasn't interested. It was a bunch of hogwash, a bunch of snake oil, blah blah blah, right? And then when he
Sure,
died,
sure.
he came back with a completely different attitude about it. And we know how he died, and he's told his story. He's even told his story right here on the show. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I'd sure love to hear it. And I know that other people,
Sure.
you know, because somebody out there somewhere has probably experienced a similar thing to what you have. And that's why I always encourage my guests to be as deep and as specific as they can, because you just never know whose life you're going to change. You never know who's going to resonate with your story. And you know what? Just like with Brittany, when she told her story, all of a sudden my three brain cells, I only have three of them. Most everybody has like trillions of them. Me, I only have three. And my three brain cells turned on, and I had to take a look. And that changed my life. And now my goal is to change other people's lives every single day.
Sure.
And so I really believe that these powerful stories that, you know, and I think that the more detail people can get, the better it is for them, and the more resonating it can be. And so, if you don't mind, you did say that you've had two near death experiences. Now that's fantastic, and
I
that,
have some
you know,
more.
the way I look at it right here is that one of the people that had a near death experience, he's one of my heroes. I love this guy. He lives here in Salt Lake. His name is Ralph Foyer, and he died of a heart attack on his front lawn, and he was dead for 10 minutes.
Wow.
And you know, you ask pretty much anybody out there that knows anything about the human body, they'll tell you that's impossible, that he could come back, and
Mhm.
that he could have his faculties. Because not only did he come back, did they bring him back after being dead for 10 freaking minutes, but he still knew who he was. He still had the ability to talk and walk and all that kind of stuff. And so that right there is
Sure.
just, that's not possible. But as we all know, anything is possible with God.
Well, yeah.
And
I definitely have some. I definitely would love to share with you. I basically am someone who has overcome some really rare things. I mean that literally, because I'm lucky I'm alive. I'm lucky where I am. I'm lucky with what I have. I'm very fortunate, feel very grateful to have the kind of friends and the like-minded people that I'm connected with, and with you and others who are very much into, you know, all about, you know, self-reliance, you know, taking care of ourselves and empowering ourselves. So what has started for me is, I used to have cerebral palsy. I say I used to because I basically um, discovered some things that I could do and did some self-study for almost a couple of many years. And it was all about a lot about perceptions. doing deprogramming, reprogramming the mind. 90% of it was changing my beliefs, but then yet I also knew that there was a big important factor of the body. There were things I needed to do for my body. I basically refused to settle for being stigmatized by the society, fitting into. So for me, somebody who has come from a background of adversity, from abandonment, from having to overcome a very challenging being in the foster care system, which is in itself is broken, having been in the school system, the education system, where I was placed and displaced. I was basically displaced, separated from everybody else in the mainstream by putting into special education classes like that, and left to do nothing. I did have intervention while I was an adolescent from a special foster mom who I love dearly, who was like my spiritual mom, my guardian angel in a sense, because she taught me how to stand up for myself. She realized she took in kids that people gave up on, and she basically taught me that, basically just to don't care, like, don't care about what others are saying. It's like I would be showing up, she would take me see some specialists and whatnot, and I was shut down for 6 months when I first went to her, because I had been so traumatized from the placement I was before. But basically, once she got a word out of me, she knew that I was hungry for love and I was hungry for knowledge. So she helped me to stand up to bullies. She helped me to stand up, to teach me how to basically to keep that curiosity going. So that always came back. So when I left her, I started to spiral down into depression, and some other stuff, because I didn't know my rights. But anyway, fast forward, the education system did not really know how to work with me. They didn't really try to work with me, help me to succeed. I was determined I wanted to challenge, I wanted to grow, I wanted more. I was at a high school, the last family I was with in the foster care system was a godsend. It was a wonderful connection that I had, an opportunity that feels like I manifested also, because I remember the high school I was at, because I had gone from one high school to the other in between my last two foster homes. And I had asked my instructor, I said, can I please I wanted my last year there, I wanted to get into a regular class. I wanted to get into a regular history class. It's like, I want to feel challenged. I want to do this. But yet he gave me some reasons why of not doing so, that I might fail, and then I'd be staying back another extra 2 years. Then lo and behold, weeks later, I don't know how many, my mom, basically introduced me to about the family moving away to another state, to Utah from California. And of course I wanted to go, so everybody allowed me to go and be with them. They knew that it was healthy for me to be able to stay with them. And so I did. And then lo and behold, I'm in this small town. I go to this high school my senior year, and there's no such thing as a program that separates you from everybody else. You literally get to, and I was like, oh yes, so it was so liberating when I was in my counselor's office. Like, oh wow, yahoo, I was so excited, and it was my first time seeing snow, and it was just like, I felt like I was in magical land, a magic land, it was fun. It was really fun. And it was just, I was determined, though. I wanted to go on to college because I felt like I missed so much. I was so socially isolated. All these and these, whatever else was the case. So after I graduated, I had gone to had a CETA job at the time when President Reagan was in office, before he took the program away. I had a job working part-time in a kindergarten classroom while going back over to the high school to remedial class. They worked with me to prepare to go to college, because I was so doggone it determined. I even, despise whatever anybody else says or naysayers before I had gone there. So I did go to college, and I ended up being a BC student for somebody that's never really had regular college, high school. I was in the last high school also in my last year. So 30 years later, I went back to school for the Chase of the Journey and got on the dean's list, and in honor society, and as somebody who's never really had formal education, and then of course at the time I obviously have improved myself, because obviously at that time they did the testing on the IQ test and things like that. So I'm somebody who looked like I didn't have, it's like the looks can be deceiving, right? I literally I was trapped in my body. That's what happens when you have cerebral palsy. I had mild cerebral palsy, which, I never really bought into it anyway, which is why it didn't really carry over, and nobody took me to do anything, any therapies or anything like that. I just kind of went along, in the beginning when I was connected with the Cerebral Palsy Association in my first age 2 to 4. But then after that, it was really all about my needing to learn self acceptance. It was an opportunity in self discovery. All have been all about that. And so when so now I am, wanting to dedicate my life to just being an example to others, starting to write a book, tell about my experiences and things like that. But my body, my body shut down when I was little, because I didn't want to be here. It was like, we start when we were little. We react to the adults and people around us in some way, or we take something. And I basically, when I was a teenager, I was like half my age emotionally, physically, with my hormones, things like that. So I really lived a very challenging life physiologically, and then on top of that. So there was a part of me that was mature, and then there was a part of me that was underdeveloped, and so it was understandable that I was considered to be learning disabled, or whatever they called it. Yet came all of that. So this is what because I've refused as an adult, refused to accept being classified or fitting into society's norms, or their, it's like, this kind of like statistic you're going to be in. It's kind of like, living with labels. So my first book, is the title that I've got right now is Beyond the Limits of Labels, a journey of self-acceptance. And that's what my life's been about. And I want to be able to make a difference in other people's lives.
No, you sure found the right place to be able to do that. Oh, I love it. So how did you end up, if you don't want to share this, you don't have to, but if you don't mind, I definitely would love to hear it. What can you kind of give us a little bit of a description of what you went through when you had your near-death experiences, when you died?
When I had my near-death experience, which one? My last one.
Both
Okay.
of them.
Both of them. Okay, sure. I'd be
If
happy
you don't
to.
mind, it's up to you. I don't
Oh,
force
sure.
anybody to say
Sure.
anything they don't want to say.
Sure. I'd be happy to. My first near-death experience was it was before I returned back to college. It's about 2006. I didn't realize this consciously, but there was a part of me that was energetically not wanting to be here. I took it as that I really wanted to do something for my body, because I did. There were like two-way street here, two different things that I was up to. One was I wanted to get what it would be like for my body to be able to, my muscles to completely relax, because I was somebody that was still at that time, I still had a lot of trauma, drama, energies, and cellular memories in my body ever since I was a baby. I've had traumatic brain injuries. I think the PS, what is it they call it? When veterans come back and they PSTS or something like that. What is it?
Yeah,
Post-traumatic stress.
PTSD.
That happened to me just from going through my experiences and having to go through the foster care system, the school system, the systems, the institutions, the medical institutions, the school institutions, foster care systems, all that. It was very traumatic, very traumatizing. Especially whenever if I got abused, I got physically abused or emotionally abused, mentally abused, or bullied by peers or adults or so when I went to a spa, there was a Linwood spa. I wanted to go there. I went with somebody once before, and I went for the day. I went in a lot of the hot or cold rooms, and I saw on the door, it says, "Be sure to drink 2 to 3 cups of water before you enter." I literally did that. I went and I got the drinking faucet of the water. So I was drinking acidic, the non-balanced water, obviously. But I kept drinking, and I wanted to lay on the sand, on the cloth-covered sand, to allow me to get what does it feel like to completely be able to relax and not feel anxious in my body. And because I had a lot of anxiety, and even when I went to college, I had to deal with anxiety. So, by taking and having my exams in a separate place, so that I can have it, I wouldn't be under so much pressure. Um, but I I was afraid to go home. I didn't want to go home. I called the friends. I was there. I was starting to lose it. I was starting to lose consciousness, and I had a knowingness I needed help. I needed some people to help me, and so I called the spa. They didn't want to send the ambulance or anybody. They told my friends, who asked me, "Why don't you just send the ambulance to get her?" I said, "Oh, she's ready to go. She's got her water. She can go." And so I had some friends that came and got me. It took me. I ended up going to the hospital, the ER, and I went into my body went into a shock, into like having a seizure, because my brain didn't know what to do. Because I had flushed out all of the electrolytes in my entire brain, and I had a fluid build up in my brain. And so I went into ICU. I ended up in an ICU. I was starting to die that night, that day. I was in ICU, I think, for about 2.5 days. And I remember as I started coming around, I started to recognize characters, faces. I saw these people coming in, and I'm like, are these people for real? When are they going to take off their masks? So I was literally seeing these people, the technicians, the doctors, the nurses, or anybody else coming in, and I see them in their roles, their occupational role, doing what they're doing because they think that they have to do that, not necessarily because it's what they love. They want to do it. It's kind of like not really living from the heart, and not really, it's like, and it was also a wake-up call for me too, to realize that I was living in illusions of my own mind as well. I wanted to die when I had that near-death experience, but I wasn't consciously thinking about that. It was a subconscious thing, because energetically I didn't feel fulfilled. I wanted to feel more fulfilled, and yet I always felt like I was struggling. I always had to fight and whatever. There were some more things for me to work on, to do some clearing, for my spiritual growth, which took some time before that came about. But the whole thing is that, and I had tears, kind of coming down my eyes, because I also felt that profound sense of bliss and joy. It was like, and I lost, and it was also the other thing that happened. this is a really profound thing for those that are from my past, because of the life I came into and the family I came into, I felt, and because I was abandoned when when I was 4, before I, was rescued from my father and, and then sent into foster homes, I was, I always had that deep-hearted hurt of not feeling like I was good enough, that I wasn't accepted, I wasn't approved of, that I wasn't good enough and valued enough, that and nobody wanted to be my friend, and nobody was my friend, and nobody, cared about me that much, because people would always come and go. I felt the same way with my family. Like, oh, she's, like, okay, move on, and it just felt like it was very hard for me to get really close to anybody, because of the distances that were created. And except there were some really valuable connections that I had with, a couple of my last foster home and and when I was my adolescent years. So there were 2 placements that were, really good for me. But then when it was time for me to go out on my own, I didn't have the connections. I didn't have anybody to turn to help me. And I refused to accept what it was set up for me to see my father, to sign some papers, to accept being put on Social Security. And what it was really about was like saying that I would agree with them, that they're calling me and letting me have this label that I'm retarded, that I'm disabled. It's kind of like, that there were records since I was 8 years old saying that I am developmentally retarded. And, all it really was is that, there was a lot of whatever beliefs or points of views that everybody else had, and the disallowing of really working with what it was that I needed, what was required here. I had, it was a different lifetime, different, anyway, I kind of started going into a tangent there, but let me go back to about back to the center of this is that I, I basically had to be my own, I basically had to, okay, now I remember. Okay, I started to lose it. Now it came back to me. Okay, so one of the things, that, like 4 years, I had gone back to college, I'd finished that. Um, oh, that was from the first time. Okay, so what happened was let's see, where was I? I kind of went into a circle. So
Gone
I
back to
basically,
college.
huh?
You were where you had gone back to college.
Okay, right. And I basically, when I wanted to be in college, I just wanted to keep going to college because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know, how what more there was. And I think it was also an escape, because I didn't have somewhere that I can completely let go and really heal from the inside out. And I needed that. And I wasn't about to be suitable for me to go to the traditional counseling, which I tried that, because they only keep you replaying you talking about the problems after problems, is not really helping you with solutions. And so, and one of the dreams that I had, and I wishes that I really wished I had, was this was during the 80s, is I wish there was something that could help people like myself who are in this transition and nowhere else to go, no other resources to help me to give you about being prepared for society, for reality, which is one of the things, that I so much desired at that time. it's interesting what we think about, we bring about in some way. It didn't come from me, but it ended up coming for others, because now that there is something where at least they can have a transitional, for those that are, they can kind of have independent living thing kind of thing while they're working on getting on their own type of thing. But that was something that I really missed. And so I basically kind of was on my own and relying on, seeing some professionals, things like that, because I really wanted to keep that curiosity going. It's like, well, what else could I do? But I also had some stubbornness too about me, because I didn't know what I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. We're in our own prisons, of our mind. And that kind of carried me into staying kind of practical. It was like I was thinking about my family, my birth family. They're much more practical than I am in some ways. And, and so I had that. And then there was the other part of me that wanted to be creative, but yet it was like, oh, you can't do that and make a living, It's like, so I kind of started to go on a track thinking that this is what I got to do. So it was all back to that, also being in survival mode. I ended up getting some extended family that I became, we became family with for about 13 years. And they kind of rescued me, kind of moved me from Utah to California, and I was there for a while. I started to take my life after an incident where I had been chastised by an employer. He was praising the teacher and cutting me, chastising me, correcting me, and I just like, my anxiety went into full gear, and it was like, I just can't go back. And I called this counselor, and I was like, I can't go back to work. She wanted to talk me into it. Instead, I tried to OD. So I ended up in the hospital. And the counselor and the other extended family friends, they thought it was because they were moving and leaving, because they were leaving again to another state. And so it was just this whole thing around being in survival mode. So here again, I had to go out and try to find some part-time jobs. I was trying to get work. Physical labor was very hard on me. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have anywhere else to turn. I wasn't disabled enough for this, or I wasn't this and that enough to get the help. I fell through the cracks. I ended up, having changed my name too, which, is another story in itself, but it literally was kind of like wearing a whole new pair of shoes that don't fit, and the way things turned out. So I ended up moving to Seattle. I was talked into moving to Seattle by the couple I was connected with. They basically, there were some conditions attached. There was some codependency that I ended up having experienced around that, and I ended up getting a job at a laundromat of all places, where I need to be working with my hands, my creativity, my mental creativity. After 2 years of working in this laundry facility, I transferred to being a supervisor of developmentally disabled adults. Within my first 6 months of probationary period, I had 5 back-related injuries, and ended up putting me out of work, and I couldn't go back. And it was like intervention. Sometimes we get things happen, and we think that maybe it's the haphazards of life, but yet it was really also a blessing in disguise, because I was able to break up the conditions attached to with the extended family, and they were helping me to live in a condo. I had basically been able to, I had to make a choice, and this was a wake-up call for me. I started to get acupuncture treatments. This was like after a year into my work in this job I had, and this is when I started taking my power back. This is when I started to explore and look at things and look at people, things differently. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If this person that I'm learning from it's given me some insight. You know how we can be transparent and can pick up energy from people and read their energy or something. This is what was happening to me. I was exploring some things that were beyond my usual understanding and awareness. So there were like 3 different people that came into my life that I would see, and they were giving me these situations that they were picking up on between me and this couple, because I was very skeptical. I thought they knew what they were trying to tell me not to go, not to return. I mean, not to file for this for LNI, that'll mess up my work history and all this stuff. Like, so I basically, but I was confused until I had somebody that came, into my life, took me to see my vocational counselor, talked with him with me, and I allowed that. And sure enough, that person was agreeing that these others do not have my best interest, at heart. They basically, I think they were trying to control me. And so then these other 3 people, key people who were part of my starting of my spiritual path and my healing. It was a shake up time for me. And it was like all of these 3 different people did different modalities, and yet they were coming up with the same messages about the dynamics of what was really going on. And, this, what I could do, or what to consider. And then when I had a caseworker and I allowed this person to talk to the caseworker about me, and I saw the report, and I'm like, oh my gosh. That was like, okay, I get it. I got it. I'm out of here. So if I have to, I'll go rent somebody's house, and so basically then again, but then, a couple of years later, within a year, I met somebody and started doing deprogramming, reprogramming perceptions and beliefs. I ended up being able to move from there, long story short, I got into connections that guided me to this housing project, this housing community program that has units, be able to help with getting your housing like that. And so, because I thought I had to go find and rent somebody else, but in my heart, I really wanted my own place. And that was exactly what I was able to do. I followed through with what I needed to do. I went to this place, and usually they have a waiting list. It was like everything lined up. It's like everything lined up in my favor. And so then that was, I started staying connected with some friends who was originally from another country, Sri Lanka, and it really helped me to learn about peace and being able to see things differently, and basically separating myself from, the being able to look at as an observer, basically. So that really propelled me forward, really helped me a lot. And so then when I went back to school, was after my near-death experience, because I was fed up. I was like, I got to do something different. It's like, it's like, this isn't going to work for me anymore. I'm willing to do that. And then yet when I finished college is when I decided, and I got some help. I had some sessions with theta healing sessions. Somebody was helping me with working with my brain. With my brain, I still had some residues of from cerebral palsy, and it basically it was transformed. Like, oh my gosh. And I looked more into this, and I decided I was determined to go and take these back-to-back classes of theta healing, because I felt like this is going to really help me have a clean slate. So I invested in my spiritual help, my spiritual growth, doing that. So it took me going to that level, the next phase. And then I went into, I started, having connections and doing exchanges, practicing with other practitioners and things like that. And that's really, helped me to hone in more of, okay, so what next? And so it was almost like this it's almost kind of like, layers of an onion. You take 2 steps forward and take 1 step back, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back, almost, for a while. And it was just like, oh, okay. And so it was really, that's what my life's been about. It seems like it's about, discovering individuality and really standing up for and being an example. I cannot live not being in my integrity, being authentic. It's just not me. It's like but now I'm working towards wanting to create relationships and friendships and things like that. So try to do more in my life. And really, my heart is to really to do some more transformations, have some more breakthroughs, you know.
Well, I think that that's an amazing story, hon. You're definitely a trooper, and I think it's a great testament to what I firmly believe, and that is that there's no such thing as a coincidence. Um, you know,
Yeah, my second one, my second experience, near-death experience, was where I had started to have some tripping, some falling. I had some falls where I had tripped and fell on the sidewalk. I was on my way to take a dance class, and I was running in a hurry to get the bus. I tripped and fell and landed on my wrist and broke my wrist. I ended up getting a cast on my arm for my wrist. Then, after about the day before I was to go to get it taken off, I was frustrated. I was just like, I want to get out. I want out of here. Literally, I was saying that. And lo and behold, I put myself in a position where I was out of balance. And when I left, I got hit by a car. I didn't plan that, but yet it was all related to that, like being in that energy of like, I just want to get out of here. It's like, okay, well, the universe showed up, just like that. I mean, it's not the universe's fault. It's my doing of that. But it's not my fault that I got hit, but yet energetically, I set myself up to be in the way of that, for that to happen.
yeah.
So I got hit, it's like I had this cane, because I basically, when I had my fracture, it was on my right side. My left side is where I have no central vision eyesight. My retina never fully developed, and my left ear mechanically never fully developed. Although I'm starting to get some hearing in there. Something's going on in there because of the things that I'm doing, all the healings I'm doing. But basically, the left side is a little bit, let's see, if you're dominant, your right side dominant, and your left side's not as strong. And then your right side, you get injured, and all of a sudden it's up in a cast. You're like, whoa, kind of wobbling, It's like the equilibrium system is what was going on. And so that was part of my frustration. And so then when I trying to use this cane, I'm giving it a cane, I need a walking stick or something, but just to kind of hold my balance up. So I was having difficulties with my balance. I was really having some issues going on physically. And so there was somebody that coming down around the corner, bumped right into me, and I went bam, and I landed on my side, and I was yelling. I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, I wanted to be heard. I didn't want to end up getting run over again or something, but the person obviously heard somebody yelling, so she stopped. But I ended up going to the hospital. Multiple fractures in my right leg, multiple fractures in my pelvis, multiple fractures in my ribs. I was just like, oh my God, it's like, it was difficult for me to breathe when my artery vein was ruptured. I ended up going into ICU. I was in ICU for almost a week. Oh my God, they sedated me with these drugs, and I literally looked out and looked at my eyes around, and I was like seeing images and stuff that was because of the drugs. And it was like, oh my God, this stuff in me. Like, what is this? you know, but anyway, they had to do what they had to do. I mean, that was just their business at the hospital. But um, being sensitive as I am, I literally, I think what brought me back was because I knew I could, because I'd already come back before. And it was like, because I really, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I ended up getting transferred over to skilled nursing to help me to be able to rehabilitate, to be able to walk again and all this other stuff. And I was at this skilled nursing facility. Um, this is really interesting. The first weekend I was there, the first few days that I was there was like, oh, finally, I can die. If I want to just leave my body, I'll just go. And I'm here and they can take care of me from there, because there was a part of me that just like didn't want, life was such a struggle, such a hard time, kind of making ends meet and at the time. And but it gave me an opportunity to find my inner peace also, because I was at a place where they had like a chaplain type of thing, and somebody visited me and I told them, I said, that's something I could use some help with, to help me to find my inner peace. And so that was where, and I also, the interactions that I had with the person that did an assessment of me, of, for my therapy, she could tell from the expressions in my face. That's one thing about me, is that, the expressions, are authentic. And she could tell that I didn't really want to do this, like I was kind of resistant, I mean, obviously I was scared, and that, and I was still having the trauma and stuff. I was still, like every time a light would go on at night, I was like, like, it was in that post-traumatic stress. And so but then when she said something to me, and I was like, oh boy. It was kind of like that, the consequences, basically, she was telling me what the consequences would be if I was being resistant, if I was resistant. And so then I like, okay, if I'm gonna get out of here, I want to be the best I can be, it's like, you know, but I also felt secure there, because it felt safe, because it was like I needed that sense of security and felt like other people take care of me. And I think that was also part of the dysfunction of my childhood, of feeling like, being left to believe that I would never be able to take care of myself or make my own choices, decisions. You see where this is all kind of leading back to. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, like, but of course I've learned to overcome that one now too, now that I'm aware. The awareness is everything. The awareness of that helped me to kind of look at it and evaluate it, because before that happened, I had already started doing my theta healing and doing my questioning the beliefs, where they came from, what was it about, what my feelings were, and overcoming those, and doing some processes and techniques to help to remedy that, cellular memories and things like that. But the it was really interesting. I decided, okay, I woke up the next morning and said, okay, or actually I went, it was that night, because I had just started, just when I had gotten to the skill facility, I had attended my very first live, I think, well, it was maybe one of the first, where it was a live training seminar from Bob Proctor, who was doing one of his, I think it was Think and Grow Rich or something like that. And it was my first weekend there, so I was fortunate I was able to listen to that. And I was thinking about that, and thinking about the conversations I had with this therapist, and about what I need to do. And it was like, okay, let me practice this. I think there was a part of me that was skeptical, but I decided that I would try it out. I said, okay, let me manifest being the athlete, kind of become the athlete, be that energy of the athlete, to get through this. And sure enough, I started speeding up my healing 3 times, fast, as fast. Got out of there. I was in like October 7th and left December 1st. It was just like, and I was finally able to go back to see my practitioners. you know, who, and there was a chiropractor who was like, he said, why are you with the walker? And I said, well, 'cause it was like, he said, you would be better off if you were to get some hiking sticks and poles and walking so that you're getting the cross range of the left and right of feet and legs. You're right. You're right. Okay, so I had this friend that had taken me. I had her take me. It was around. It was in November. You know, to get me some trekking poles. They got on sale. Yeah. Okay. So I started doing transfer into that, and eventually got to where I didn't need that so much. But you know, I did have some a few fond memories while I was there at the skilled nursing facility where I did this little wheelchair train change with people and kind of encouraging a couple other people. And so it was just part of me. It's like, I got to give back. I want to give to something, do something. So it kind of helped me through also. And so that kind of, but ever since that experience, I just continue to bounce back. You know, I just was like, okay, if I'm gonna live, let's make the best of it. And I didn't feel like I could complete my life without making a greater difference in, you know, in the world. So where I'm giving back to life.
So during all of this, Kong's water still hadn't entered the picture yet, correct?
That's right.
And so you were working and utilizing acupuncture and you know, other mind healing things, you know, because one thing we do know, and I've learned tremendously over the last 3 years, is that our minds are incredibly powerful. And you know, I used to say that the Kangen water is 75% of the health equation, and that the other 75% was your diet, your exercise, your environment, and your mindset. And now I have actually switched that around to where it's 75% water, the other 25% is your mindset, your exercise, your diet, and your environment. And I think that I really believe that the mindset is more important than your diet. It's more important
Oh yes.
than your exercise. It's more important than your environment. The
Oh
only
yeah.
thing that's probably not more important than is the kind of water that you're putting in your body. I realized from learning what I've learned about this water that it is literally the single most important thing. And you know, I've got a friend, Ian Rude. I call him the Voltinator, and he's really, really into the whole mindset thing. And he,
Mhm.
you know, he healed himself through the mindset side of things as well. And one thing we've talked about is the fact that if your mind is not hydrated properly, then it has a really difficult time being able to do what it needs to do
Mhm.
to help your body heal, to think straight, to think properly, to register things the way that you should. And so, and an interesting little tidbit about that side of things is that our mind, our brain, is like 85% water. It's, you know, it's the only part of our body that doesn't have more water content than our blood. You know, our blood is the most highly content of water, but the brain is second. And
Mhm.
where that becomes a crazy conundrum is that it's the hardest part of the body to hydrate.
Mhm.
But with Kangen water, because of the microclustering and the electricity, it literally, when you drink Kangen water, it gets to your brain before it gets to your stomach. And
Yeah.
so it's a tremendous tool in that. And I'm curious what you have to say about how, since you did get on the Kong train and you did start getting the water, you made the commitment and made it happen. How has it changed all of these things for you? How is it,
Okay.
what has it done in that regard for you?
I like to respond to that. I want to back up a little bit on something that that I had lost. I wanted to share about the, you know, after I had my near-death experience of my first one, that where I had um, I was so full of bliss and joy and had tears running down my face. Is that what was profound to me is that I thought that I didn't have very many friends, and that, you know, people were kind of come and go, and that meant that they weren't my friends, you know. And so, but what I learned and realized is that while I was unconscious, I was witnessing many people, many friends, and those that did hear about my situation, sending out prayerful thoughts, energy, positive energies and things my way. And it was almost like being surrounded, saturated with, it was like, oh, you know, it's like that. Oh, oh, okay. You know, it's like, oh, that's what it means, kind of thing. You know, it's kind of like, it was like an innocent child waking up, you know, like, oh, okay. But no, really, now, and I'm gonna correct myself on about with my acupuncture, is that it was a while before I had acupuncture again. I started it after it was in last year was the first time when I changed my health insurance that allows me to have up to 25 treatments. And by that time I had the Kangen water. So I had noticed that, you know, it was just this, it was like a magnified having the Kangen water with the acupuncture. But yes, the last question you were asking me, um sorry, I got off on the tangent on that. What was the question again? I want to
It was
respond.
just basically you know, you've gone through all these struggles and you've been such an incredible trooper, and you did all this stuff before you even had Kangen water in your
Hmm.
life. And, you know, we talked earlier about how Kangen water doesn't cure anything or heal anything, but it just simply gives our body what it needs so it can do the things that it needs to do in order to get itself into homeostasis, to get itself into balance. How would you describe, you know, through your trials and tribulations that you've gone through, and then how things changed
Oh, okay.
once you instituted this tool, this gift into your life? How did that change everything for you? And, you know, how do you feel like things have changed for the better, for the different, and that kind of stuff? You know, how would you use your experience to like encourage others that, you know, because let's face it, honey, you've
Oh,
been through a
okay.
lot.
Sure.
You've been through a
Sure.
lot. You are a
Yeah.
tremendous inspiration. And I feel so blessed to have you on the show today to share this with people, because there's a lot of people out there that are going through some really rough things. And what I would really encourage or ask you to share with our guests and with the people that are going to be seeing this as time goes by is why they're going through whatever they're going through. And I got to kind of clarify why I'm saying this, because what I've learned is that I don't care what it is. I don't care what the problem is. I don't care what the thing is. I don't care what it is. Kong makes everything better. Everything. I've never seen anything that Kong doesn't make better in the 3 years I've been involved with it. And so, you know, what I'm wondering about for you is, you know, how can you encourage people that whatever it is they're going through, how this can make it better? How did it make it better for you? How did your body
How did it make it
get
better
better?
for
How did
me?
things change for you?
What has changed for me is being the master over my conscious mind enough to know that, oh, you know, it's like for example, I won't give details to this particular situation, but for example, there's something that in the last number of weeks that has been very stressful for me. And there were some trigger points, and it was like, and I remember when I was talking with a mentor of mine. I was getting some coaching, and was talking about the facts about something, and I was getting some reality checks. And there was part of my energy started to panic, and I was being reminded, it's like, breathe, release, 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 and reminding myself, like, this release, release, it's like release the need to attach myself with the emotions, to the entertaining that the energy. Is like, okay, this shall pass, this shall pass. And what else is possible? It's like being in that. It's just much more organic for me to start to question. It's like, what else is possible here? How does it get better than this? To take and turn the mind into a tool as a way of being in solution mode. It's like, okay, so what's required here? What else is possible? This shall pass. Like, and also to know that the mind is a mirror to whatever either was going on recycling in our mind, or that we're picking up from others that we're not aware of, that we're taking on or being transparent to, or adapting or adopting. So the mind doesn't know the difference. So for me, it's become stronger in that the mind doesn't know the difference, in my awareness, that the mind doesn't know the difference between what is real or imagined. It is a program. It's like a program that takes in and whatever we feed it. So what I've been able to do is like, oh, okay. When I start to get triggered about something, oh, okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So now, it's like, it is what it is. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to say now. I'm like, it is what it is. Okay, let's move forward. It's like, what else is possible here? So you have other people who come to this, and they, maybe have this reason or that reason to make the choice that they make. And it's like, well, what if it were possible? So entertain the thoughts, entertain the idea, so it's about taking and turning the mind around into a friendly tool. Yeah. That's what we have it for. And the people, if you start to look at it like, well, if I did, kind of put yourself in it's kind of like the principles that are taught in the law of success, and what's also talked about in Science of Getting Rich and the Think and Grow Rich and Neville Goddard's about the power of awareness and our feelings. Our feelings are the secret. These are key principles that are very pivotal to helping us to recognize how the mind really can work. And so just because of some circumstance, situation, just like, well, yeah, I could have not done the things that I did. Like, oh yeah, well, I'm on fixed income. I can't do that. It's like when you never could. Try or can never try. It's like, you either do or you don't. You either choose or you don't. You either explore or you, it's like, okay, I'm just stay back, or do, it's like, is this a part of my energy of being in opposition, or am I being resistant, or am I, is there something I'm afraid of? And being able to recognize what the feelings are, what's really going on. Like, oh, okay. So that helps to dissipate things. And so that's one of the things that I've gotten better at. It's just really cleaning up the pollution of the mind. It's like, there's a wonderful, crazy statement I've learned from, it's used a lot and taught in Access Consciousness. Everything is opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing's opposite of what it appears to be. Everything is opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing's opposite of what it appears to be. You say that 2 or 3 times in a row, you got thoughts going on, like, whatever, the chatterbox of the mind. Looks like we lost some audience here. But it takes you and puts you into a position of being in charge. I feel more in charge.
Yeah.
I feel more
So
empowered.
how, for people that are out there that are listening to this, or that are going to be listening to this, and they're hearing what you're saying, I can hear people, I can see people saying to themselves, so what the heck does Kong's water have to do with all this?
What it has to do with it is it when you see it as a way of integration. It's like not everything is, it's like there's not one thing that's going to do everything for us. It's like looking at a whole person, the whole, it's like you're, when you're making a pizza, you got a pizza, you got all your ingredients. It's not just one ingredient to have a pizza, right? You got to have a combination to make it really considered to be a real pizza. So if you're missing something, it's not going to taste quite the same. It's not going to be quite the same. The same thing like, when we take and do things that are repetition. Repetition is the key to being able to have consistency and to develop our minds and develop that, which we want, we desire. It is that. So true. I could say, okay, well, yeah, if I don't drink this water, well, yeah, everything else can continue, but it's not going to be quite the same in the sense that it is, because there'll be a missing ingredient to it, to the whole pie. It's like looking at, it's like it's this kind of fun thing that I kind of associate this with is doing poetry, of creating life recipes. You got these different ingredients. They're all ingredients. They all have a part. They all play a role. Just like, in the film industry, everything, wherever there is something that's missing, it's not all together. It's not as strong, it's not as concrete.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't mean that, oh, you got to do this in order to this, but it's kind of like saying, okay, it's like you're going to a restaurant choosing what you're going to order. It's like, of course you can just do without some of these other things and have only this. But you also, when you tell the waitress or the waiter what you want to have, you don't just wait and assume that they're going to bring you exactly what you need or what you want. You got to be specific. You got to be able to decide what it is you're going to have, what it is you're going to choose. And, so it's really about choice, about making choices.
Thank you, sweetie. Callie, this is my sweetie. This is my better 99%.
Hi.
Hi, Tina. This is Callie Levine.
I see you.
Coming to us from Seattle today.
Oh, that's sweet. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I like your shirt. That's cute.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Good to meet
Cool.
you.
Good to meet you.
So Callie, I really love your story, and I think you're right on the money with everything you're talking about. And but we've been here for quite a while, so we're going to kind of wind this thing down a little bit. But I wanted to ask you. This is like my favorite question that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and I'm always amazed at the different answers that I get to this question. But this has to do with you. You're in a situation. You're at the grocery store, in the grocery store line. You're, wherever, and you only have a few seconds to give some people some sort of information about Kangen water that might get them interested, that might make them want to come to a presentation, that might want to get them to watch a video, might want to get them to read something. What do you say to those people?
What would I say to those people? Oh, I would want to get to know them. It's like, what's important to them. They would be open. to something that could, it just kind of reminds me of something else that came up where I read about somebody's story, and I'm like, oh wow, does this person know about this? It's like then I would want to, have you ever heard of slightly alkaline water or something like that, or considered how that might make a difference for you, or would you be open to it? Would you be willing to look at a video or something you can choose for yourself?
Yeah, perfect.
Uh,
No, that's kind of what we need to be able to do is, find good ways to get people to open their eyes and take a look. And
How
so,
do you do? How do you respond? How do you respond to that kind of scenario?
well, my big, my big thing that like I'm always wearing hats and shirts that create curiosity, and people ask me all the time, so what's that all about? And my go-to line is, it's the most important thing that a human being can do for themselves. And if I were to get you some information, would you be interested in taking a look at it? And sometimes people say yes, sometimes they say no. And oftentimes I like to use Sam's method of seeing if I can, if they say yes, I say, well, me, I've only got 3 brain cells, so half the time I can't remember who I talked to, and I talk to a lot of people. Any chance we might get a selfie together so that you remember who I am, I remember who you are, and I can text you some information? And and a lot of times they say, yeah, sure, that sounds good. That way, good idea. And then I can text them some information and text them a video, something short and sweet to be able to watch so that they can get some information. And there's all kinds of different ways. And I know that old Steve Beaumont on twice a month, he does his Wednesday night trainings, and I like to be in on those because he always has lots of good ideas
Who does?
for ways to, what's up?
Who does?
Steve Beaumont.
Oh, okay.
Up there.
I don't think I'm on the email list for that. I'd like to be.
Yeah, we'll need to make sure to get you in that. Just ask, you can get hold of Sam and get him to get it to you, or
Okay.
I'll be happy to forward it to you. I know Steve won't mind. He does it every
Sure.
every other Wednesday at
Oh,
7
okay.
o'clock your time, 7 p.m. your time.
Oh, I'd like that.
One thing one of the big parts of this show for me is I want to get people who resonate with each other together.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time towards the closing part of the show, I always ask the guests to give away whatever information they would like to give away as far as contact information, whether that would be phone numbers or email addresses or Facebook pages or Instagram or websites or whatever, just, and it's completely up to
Sure.
you. You don't want to give away any information? Don't. That's up to you too. You can give away all the information you want or none. But I like to always open it up so that if somebody a couple months from now or whatever, a week from now, a day from now, watches this video and they're totally enthralled by your story and they want to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
I do have some websites. I actually have a personal website, although I want to work on it. So it's my first and last name together.com. But what I'd really like to directly do, and people can find me also on Facebook. I have a page. It's called Tenacious Health, and I have a page, an author page, Callie, author Callie LeVina. Callie LeVina or Callie K. LeVina. The direct websites that I have for the can be reached for the products would be Callie LeVina yourbodyiswater.info. The http:// Callie LeVina yourbodyiswater.info. And I also have one that is for about DNA custom design nutrition, http :// Callie, so that's Callie and the letter K, .euphoriascience.com.
Perfect.
And I have you can also look me up on my website. I also have another one, but my main one, it can also be found on my main one, which is CallieLeVina.com, which I have some affiliates on there also for, if they look on the products page for like, there's some personal growth, personal development stuff.
Awesome. Beautiful. That's great. So that people can get a hold of you if they,
Sure.
because that's a big part of our process here. We want to share stories, and then when those stories resonate with somebody, we want those people to be able to hook up together and work together,
Sure.
help each other
Right.
together, and that's how we go about our process of changing the world. And
Sure.
so, Callie, with all that said, do you have any last thing that you would like to drop on people? Any last golden nugget that you would like to share with anybody as to something that might help them?
I would say that to remember that everything is being mirrored, either from whatever meaning interpretations we have going on in our mind about anything, or that, of what we pick up from the world around us. And, to be in the question. It's like, be in the question as to who does this belong to, or what else is possible. It's kind of like being able to be curious, open-minded, be the observer, and being an observer allows you to detach from being controlled by the emotions. So we give meaning and interpretation to we give the meaning everything has for us. So we get to be the steward of that, being able to choose, what we're going to allow ourselves to respond to life or anything with, and everything that comes at us or feel like it triggers us, it's an opportunity to look at that. What does this remind me of? What is this, is there something, what can I learn from this? What can I do from here? Or what can I do, to be in solution mode and carry on, to be able to not feel trapped or limited, restricted. And if there is some of that going on, then checking in, it's like, is there something that I'm resisting? Is there something I'm having a difficult time with accepting? And to tap into, how am I feeling? Because it's the feelings, when we uncover the feelings behind anything, it takes away the intensity of that to allow us to be able to move on. That's what helps with the awareness, to be coming from that place.
That is some incredible advice, quite frankly, coming from somebody like you, because a lot of times when people are out there giving advice, they've never even done it themselves. But I think you're a perfect
I
example
practice
of somebody.
I give what I practice.
Yeah, exactly. You are the epitome of somebody who walks the walk and
Yeah.
has been through it. And so you're not just talking, you're actually somebody who's done it. And it's really an amazing story. And I'm so blessed that you were willing to come on today and share this and take your Sunday morning to share this incredible story, this awesome information with the family. And this is what it's all about. Like I always say, you never know whose life you might change, because there might be somebody out there that's been suffering with the same exact things that you have. And when they hear your story and they see how you've overcome and adapted and gotten better, I think that's the kind of stuff that urges and pushes other people to change and helps them realize, because you might be the shining light that somebody's just desperately praying for and they might see this, and that might change their life forever. And you know, like I say every time at the end of the Kong Family Show, that we are the Kong family, and we are a family of people, and we're here to change the world. And a lot of people think that's a crazy, lofty, unattainable goal, but we actually happen to know that it's a fact because we get to see it happening every single day. And how are we doing that? We're doing it with one glass of hydrogen-rich, oxygen-saturated, incredibly hydrating Kangen water, 9.5 at a time, one lightning bolt in a box, one incredibly beautiful, informative, educational guest, one fun and interesting show at a time, and one family at a time. And so, Callie, thank you so much. God bless you for coming in here today and telling us your incredible story.
You're welcome.
A lot of
If
people probably
anybody
wouldn't be
ever,
willing to do that, and I
yeah,
really appreciate your story. I'm very moved by it, and I'm looking forward to following your journey and seeing how things continue to get better for you. And just want to encourage you to keep drinking the water, keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to work out. And I'm just tickled to have you as part of the family, and just so happy for you. And I think it's pretty neat seeing all the things that you've overcome.
thank you. And
Probably
it's an
wouldn't be
honor to connect with you too.
so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my dear. You have yourself the rest of a wonderful day. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the Mission 330 group and beyond. And hopefully next time I get up to Seattle, I'll get to see you and give you a real hug. And so kids, get out there, change the world, starting with your own, just like Callie did. It's amazing. What an amazing transformation. And do not forget your hugs, kids. These are important. You need your hugs. Don't forget your hootie-hoos. All right, Callie, thank you, dear. I love you. I appreciate you being here, and have yourself an awesome day, and we'll be in touch. If there's ever anything I can help you with, don't you hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate getting to connect with you. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye for now. We'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, kids, get out there, change the world, starting with your own. Hootie-hoo!